Okay, I wanted to do a quick update video on the B Class. The kit's coming along beautifully, but there's one or two areas that I think you might be interested in. So let's start with the chassis. It's coming along really nicely. There's one or two areas that could have been improved. It would have been nice if there was a little bit less material on the castings. I had to remove quite a bit. But generally speaking, it's coming along beautifully. I'm incredibly impressed with the detail of the well tank. And yep, big thumbs up from me on this one. Moving along to the gearbox. I've built the gearbox. It went together well, but it's probably going to end up in the bin, I'm afraid. The way this sits, let me get you the chassis. It's designed to sit in that position, obviously with the axle boxes in place. But this has got a couple of limitations. The main one being that up here, the tail on the motor, I normally fit a flywheel there, and in this case I've got to cut that off in order to allow for the size of the firebox, which is only this big. That sits in there, and it can't unless I cut that off. So my general plan is to get an extended gearbox that will sit that way up. That will sit inside there, and the motor will sit inside the boiler. Exactly the same way as I normally do it. So thank you EDM for including a gearbox, but yeah, sorry. I'm afraid I think the addition of a flywheel makes a big difference to the performance of a model. And so this one's going to end up in the scrap box. The firebox itself, by the way, an absolute pig to make. Well, that's a bit of an exaggeration. Just lots of work. Getting everything to fit was not so easy. And getting flush sides on the firebox. I've got a couple of pictures, and there's no ridges or things down the side of the firebox. There's rivets there, but I really wanted this to look good, especially as the front of it, I think, is exposed on the final model. And you know, the eye is drawn to detail, so there's going to be lots of detail on the back head, and I don't want dodgy joints there. So that one had to be done a bit carefully. Something I deviated away from the instructions on this bit. Let me find the scrap I cut out. It's designed to have a little spider in the middle about there, and it screws to the boiler, but I think that's going to be where I end up putting the motor, so I cut the spline out. Moving on to the boiler itself, this is the one that comes in the kit. It's okay, I could make this work. It's designed to be bent round, and you put a little matching plate on the inside or the outside, I can't remember which. But honestly, I just don't think it's worth the hassle. So what I did was I got a bit of tube and I made it from that instead. So, at the moment the smoke box door is just held on with a bit of contact adhesive. I love the way they've done the chimney, the dome and the tank. Everything is done with captive nuts inside, and it's designed beautifully. Everything fits. The dome is an interesting one, because there's nowhere on the top where they could hide the screw. This eventually is going to be covered, and it's going to have a safety valve sticking out. So what you do is you attach that first, and you just glue that over a guide that's screwed to the boiler. That holds it central. Beautiful. Forming the tank was something that I've been putting off for some time. It's actually on backwards at the moment. I can tell that because the B Class has two very distinctive pipes that run to the well tank at the front of the saddle tank. And that's the holes for them, so it's on backwards. Also, there's a bracket on the front which sits just there. There's a couple of rivets missing. That should be on this side, so I'll just flip it around. It's a screw, it's not a big deal. Forming that curve was a job that I'd been putting off for a few days. I needn't have done. It was actually really easy. The way they've done it is there's a plate that sits on the inside of the cosmetic front that's slightly smaller, and once that's soldered on, you've then got 3 spaces, and matches up the other end, and then you make this curve to fit. And it's really not that big a deal. If that's the reason you're not buying this kit, then you need to think again, because it's really not that big a deal. I was very impressed with that. Moving on to the superstructure. It's gone together fairly well. No big dramas. It's exactly as you'd expect it. The smoke box eventually will sit there, and I'm hoping it'll have the boiler inside it. And the great thing is, I'm at the stage where it's just starting to look a bit like a B Class. Rolling the roof was easy enough. I've got some GW Models rollers that make short work of that. And that's about it for now. Thanks for watching.